I've been asked to speak about the interface of a national addressing system. I don't know how many of you do understand what national addressing or an addressing system, a physical addressing system is. Do we all know what a physical addressing system is? We do. We are in a peculiar situation. The physical addressing system of the regulator for ICT services, do you know what it is? CA Center of Wayaki Way. Does that give you much information? Wayaki Way is quite long, isn't it? So do you have to go each and every block along Wayaki Way to find CA? Kara. I see the physical addressing system of Kara is Jamhuri Crescent off Cabernet Road. How do I get there? First of all, I have to get Cabernet Road and then get off it. So which off? Now you see where the problem is. I don't have much time, as you can see, but just to mention that I think the aspect of saying the interface of a national addressing system in urban development is a wrong concept. An addressing system is an integral part of urban and even rural development. It is not an interface. You cannot develop properly and have a sustainable development without a national addressing system. Why do I say that? Without a national addressing system, how do you provide for emergency services? Supposing you have fire on the 15th floor of somewhere off Cabernet Road. Don't you think by the time we discover where you are, you'll be gone? If you are sick, you have hypertension attack, you need emergency services to save your life within 5 minutes. Is that possible without a national addressing system?
Taxi in your compound.
Exactly. Taxi in your compound, robbers. Transport sector. Nowadays we have so many online e-commerce platforms, some of which you can order a pizza. Do you know the problems that they go through? Uber, how many times do they have to call you to know where you are? To the point that sometimes you even get upset. What is wrong with this driver? You mean he can't know, he doesn't know my place? Many of them even cancel the order because they keep going round and you're telling them, I'm off this particular lane, turn left, and then you go ahead. When you see a red building, leave that one, look for a yellow one. When you see the yellow one, leave that one, look. So without a national addressing system, we can never have efficient either public or private services. Without that, there is no sustainable development. For service providers, I've listened to a lot of them this morning. Many of them are my licensees. I know the problems they face as well. If they have to deliver bills, they look for you sometimes for a whole year, especially when you default. Because there's no national addressing system. So all I'm trying to say, and it's for this reason that having a national, or rather an addressing identity, is a human right recognized under the UN. We are almost the only country in the world that doesn't have it. There are very few countries that do not have a national addressing system. We've seen some haphazard, attempts in some Nairobi, Kiambu, whatever, but it doesn't work like that. You need to have a wholesome national system. So anyway, because I want to save on time, just to mention that there are very many constitutional provisions that really provide for the development of a national addressing system. They all relate to quality services to the citizen. The citizens have a constitutional right to quality services, whichever service you're talking about. And those services can only be made of high quality, whether it is health, urban planning, water, whatever, with the assistance of a national addressing system. Many, in my presentation, you will see numerous provisions. And when it comes to the implementation, both the national government and the county government play a role. I'll just give you a few examples. When it comes to signage, first of all, there are, let's say, about three important components of a national addressing system. There is the standard itself, which relates to the way, the length, the way that you name various roads and buildings and so on and so forth. So you need a standard that is recognized that wherever you're sitting in the country, you can actually, just indicate where you want to go, and you can even enable, even vehicles that do not require a human being to drive. It will get you straight there. So there is a standard that needs to be developed. There is also the aspect of integrating, of course, with the ICT, the internet, and so on. You need a database. And then there is the signage. Signage and naming is primarily the responsibility of county governments. And I'm saying this because I want to convert you to start lobbying, because I know Kara and all of you, your biggest strength is lobbying. So this is quite an important aspect. So as I finish, I just wanted to mention that we have initiated the process of coming up with a national addressing system. Kara is represented, my colleague Paul is here, he's going to speak about that. Eric is also in the steering committee, but let me leave the rest to them in the interest of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Postal Corporation of Kenya, I believe, is well known to most of you, at least within certain age brackets who have been using the post office for so long. The younger generation, sometimes we wonder how we're going to convert them, but we have plans for them. So I'll not go into the finer details of what we do or how we do, but basically ride on what Mr. Keme has said. PCK is an active member of the National Steering Committee on the development of NAS. Sometimes, forgive me if I put an A at the end, development of NAS. Simply because, one, the element of addressing is very core to the delivery of any postal item, not only within Kenya, but also globally. Actually, the National Addressing System is an initiative that is being pushed by the UN through the Universal Postal Union, which is a global organ, under the theme National Addressing and Address for Everyone. The agenda is that everyone in the world should be identified, located, and can be seen. It is said that out of the billions of inhabitants of the earth, 4 billion cannot be traced because they simply don't have an address. And so they fall through the cracks when it comes to provisions of services, and also being identified and so on and so forth. So they simply don't exist. So the agenda, therefore, for the National Addressing System is very important. Back home here, the post office, as you know, delivers through the boxes, private letter boxes. But with the developments and the dynamics in society, with the reach of these gadgets, people want the items delivered to them where they are, and now. That's the catchphrase is now. They do not want to wait. But the post office is a location that you have to go to. Therefore, the demand and the call for door-to-door delivery. If you want to have a door-to-door delivery, then you must have reliable, standardized way of identifying your location so that we can reach you and serve you. So PCK does try to deliver door-to-door, but we use the physical addresses provided by yourselves. And very often you find that even for the very same location, if two people were to address you, the formatting of the address would be very different. Just as he said, opposite this, I have another landmark that defines your location, which maybe by the next day, the county government has swept it aside or something has happened and no longer applicable. So for us, the element of national addressing as part of the urban development cannot be overemphasized. We need to know the roads. We need to know how to get there by naming them, and the standards that are applied in naming of roads or identifying location must be one that cannot confuse. We've been raising issues with the Nairobi County government until not too long ago. They rectified it. We had 2 Likoni roads in Nairobi, one in industrial area, another one in Kilimani. So you can imagine if you were to address somebody on Likoni Road. So they have corrected that. Now I see one is called Cotton Road. I hope there's no other Cotton Road in Nairobi. So our role and therefore the steering committee is to ensure that the county governments and stakeholders like yourselves buy into the idea and make it a daily thing. Because as you are representatives of the persons who live in your estates, you have to set standards, adopt standards, and adapt standards that will ensure that any service you ask for is delivered where you are accurately, leaving no doubt. So that said, I will share also my presentation, and you can see some of the very core issues that we hold dear. An address that you have given with a national address becomes part of your identity, so that it differentiates one Karaoke from the other, or Langat from the other by the domicile, and so on and so forth. PCK will also invest resources, and therefore our involvement in NAS steering committee and county governments is going to be a must. We call upon CARA to also work with us to identify some of the areas that they want PCK to get involved in so that you get a wholesome service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kimei. First, I'd like to acknowledge you and the Communications Authority for agreeing to have CARA sit at the National Steering Committee. It's a testament to your desire to have feedback from the main consumer of the national addressing system as they sit here. And my job has been to sit there and represent your views and fight for your rights in that committee. And perhaps what I want to do today is tell you the benefits of the national addressing system and why you should be pushing for it from your county leaders and your national leaders and doing your part to ensure that this becomes a reality. And this, when we talk about addressing, sometimes you keep on thinking it's only for the formal side of the economy, but also the informal settlements are very important. You have a right to be heard. The first step to being heard is people need to know where you are. Okay? If you do not have an abode, if you don't have a foundation, then people will never respect you, or people will take you for granted and shift you wherever. The dynamics of a national addressing system, as my colleague Mr. Langata said, is that everything that happens somewhere. That's the concept of it. Accidents, births, deaths, people live somewhere, people die somewhere, etc. Okay? So as a community, as residents, do we want to know where these things are happening? Okay? For a long time in Kenya, some of us don't want people to know where we are for different reasons. And that is the biggest reason why the addressing system keeps on failing. Okay? But the import of this is that, number one, it will improve your security in your neighborhoods. Because each of you here, even before you get your ID card, will be required to have an address. That's what we're saying. Before you get a passport, you have an address. Before you get a driver's license, you have an address. Before you have a business, you have an address. We need to know where you're from. Even that number plate on your car with the lovely cameras installed by Safaricom, when it is scanned, it should be able to say this car is owned by Mr. Namu, it was speeding at 120 kilometers per hour, we know where you are. The ticket is delivered to you. We don't have to have policemen stopping traffic on a national highway in the middle of the road to give you your ticket. It's also a safety issue, isn't it? Okay? But more than that, you want to be able to know that when you are in danger, if your car broke down on the highway between Nairobi and Mombasa, okay, and you're there, you know, between Emali or wherever, in the middle of nowhere, what landmark are you going to use to say, I am over here? Okay? Even roads can be addressed. You could say, I'm in section this, and we'll know exactly where you are and help will come there. That is how it happens in the movies out there. It's not some magic. It's just simply that they've organized themselves in a manner they know where everything is, and there are benefits to that. To give you an example, Ghana right now is launching its new, its first ever national addressing system. And the people of Ghana are going to be able to know every 5 by 5 meters of Ghana is going to be addressed. 5 by 5. So this room, I mean 5 by 5, they'll know exactly what is there and give it a name and a location so that we'll be able to find it. Okay? If we want to develop as a country, we have to be able to put together this national addressing system. What do you need to do? As residents associations, you know where every house is. Are they numbered? Are they numbered sequentially? If a stranger came there, would they be able to know where to find you? That's a big question. They say that these addresses and signs are made, number one, for the stranger and for the old. Okay? The stranger who's never been there before, and for the old who may not remember things or things may have changed in their lifetime. How do you get there? You know, in our roads today, you drive by memory, isn't it? You know the pothole because you drive on that road every day. But if you're a visitor, you will hit that pothole because there are no signs, there's no warning, there's nothing. In the same sense, we want to be able to have an addressing system that enables each and every person to have an abode. That's what really makes you Kenyan. Right now, most of you, your address is your postal box. And some of you, there's so many of you live in one postal box, if you realized. Yeah? And it doesn't tell anything. Your postal box is in Mombasa, but you're working in Kisumu. Do we know who you are really? Yeah. And it can work also in the rural areas. South Africa are doing it very well. You know, they're able to, through the village headmen and locate in different areas, they're able to know where everybody lives. And actually in the rural areas, people know things better. Yeah? That's where those guys, that location is for, yeah, the Oyers live in that area in Katuma. Yeah, that's in Homa Bay County. Okay? But that is one of the things that I need you all to really stand up and say, we need it. It's so important for our national development. But there will be costs. There will be a price. And the questions we have to ask ourselves is whether we're ready to pay for those developments. But in the end, the harvest will be beneficial to you.
My name is Tabu Charles, Chairman or the President of Bunge la Zalendo, Sauti ya Wanyonge, the first group. Our question goes like this. How are you going to, what are the importance of communication in rural areas in line with the other countries when you're going now to implement the phase out? In line of a postal code of town, county. For example, Nairobi County is county number 47. And we find that we are still getting the codes of 00100, something like that. And Mombasa County is county number 1. And you find that they have also their codes there. Probably I cannot give as an example here. And then our second questions come with the link between the land registry and the physical address system to control bad deals, carrying out reviews, in line of carrying out reviews of postal codes in this term of devolution. Are we going to devolve also these things?
My name's Redemptor Macharia from Treasured Memories. Our first question is, first of all, we've heard about the communications authority, but we are just not sure. Wherever you are talking, time frame is the most important thing. Today, tomorrow, give us a promise so that we can push you over on it. Number 2, are you going to engage the public? Leave alone us, the CARA. All members, the stakeholders involved. Let us know.
My name is John Katundu for Group 3. Our questions are as follows. The non-permanency status of our residents will cause a lot of changes because we keep moving around. How will you deal with that? in the past, there have been NAS which have not quite worked. The example I would like to use here is we've all experienced Kenya Power comes to you, disconnects you for late payment, but you have to draw a map for them to come back for reconnection. And then maybe that pizza man you gave us as an example had not been tipped well the other time. The other question we have is, as we offer you support, as you get us this essential service, what cost will it be to us as users?
Good afternoon. From Group 4, Samuel Odhiambo. First question which we came up with is the formal settlements are being factored well in your plan as a CAK. What about informal settlements? What is being done about them? Second one, on the postal services. Our question is that postal services have been taken over by developments. We have seen ICT taking over postal services, business. We have seen vehicles delivering letters instead of postal services. What are you doing to integrate that in the new development? I thought that those are the major things.
Good afternoon. I'm Mercy Cherotich. Apparently, all the questions have been aired out, but I only have one question, rather a comment, on civil education. How do you speak on civil education or civic education? How are you going to help a person from the rural area, like he or she is coming to Nairobi? Unfortunately, Afya Center has been changed to black, or the color has been changed to black. How are you going to help that person locate another point of destination? And the other one is on security or privacy. In town, we so much congested. You call someone, then all of a sudden you don't have your phone on, you don't have the phone again. So that is the issue of security. Another.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. Thank you, colleagues. I will, in the interest of time, I will leave all questions relating to postal to my colleague Eric. We have agreed like that. Therefore, I will just try to attempt the questions relating to the development of the national addressing system. The first question was in terms of timeframes. Our initial, evaluation of the shortest time it will take is between 3 and 5 years, but that is overly optimistic. If everything is in place, we've all agreed on the standard, we've all agreed on our participation, we have the sufficient funds to do it, the financial model is right, the rollout will take between 3 and 5 years at the very best, but that is overly ambitious. My personal feeling is that it's going to be progressive. There will be counties that will be quick at doing it. There will be others perhaps that have some physical challenges, like in the far-flung areas, that will take much more time. There was a question as to whether we'll engage the public. Yes. We have elaborate plans to engage the public. We've, in fact, so far held about 2 public workshops, and those are just the beginning. We have a plan to go to every county and organize public forums to educate people, so that because they will have to play a role. I mean, nobody will just come and put a signage outside your house without your consent, without you knowing what exactly is going to happen, and so on. So it is critical. Public engagement is very, very critical. There was a question from Mr. Katundu on non-permanency of residents. This is a question of dynamism. It is recognized that your address may change quite dynamically. It is for this reason that part of the rollout is having a dynamic or a system that facilitates that dynamism. In other words, we will have to provide for a database and find a way of updating that database. Of course, it will be incumbent upon you as well, the way you inform your compatriots that you've changed your number, and for them to be able to reach you, you have a role as well to inform them that my, address has changed. But over and above that, if you also inform the centralized database that you're changing your address from this to this, it's just a matter of changing it in the system, and anybody else that is interrogating the system will know that you've moved from this address to this address. So, but the physical signage will remain. It is you who has changed. So somebody else will come and occupy your previous address, but your reference to the address will suddenly change. What will happen to the issue of the previous attempts to develop addressing systems? Yes, we have recognized that there are some isolated attempts of addressing systems, including in Nairobi. We want to find out, we are looking into finding ways of giving them exemptions over a certain period as we roll out the areas that do not have, and try to find a way of integrating as, again, we migrate them into a standardized system. So they will be recognized for a certain period of time, and then later they will be fully integrated. The cost of NAS. I really don't like to scare people. It is expensive. It is going to be an expensive affair. If our vision is to be realized, it is going to be in billions, tens of billions. Tens of billions. It all depends on the standard that we adopt. But having said that, there is a lot of money to be made, and we've done some financial consideration of this. Once you have a database, so many people are willing to pay to access that database. And so the returns will far exceed the cost over a period of time. So that's the good news.
I think the question was about also the cost to the consumer.
Correct. The consumer may not feel the cost directly, but of course you pay taxes. So it will be indirect. But again, it depends on the way it's rolled out in various counties. Some counties may decide, look, can we have a public-private partnership? Or, issues of, where are we? Where are we is that we have already come up with draft framework, draft policy, and then draft regulatory framework, which includes draft legislation for the counties as well as the national government. And we are taking those through public consultation, which you rightfully say that you need to be involved. So we are in the process of preparing to subject all these into, all 47 counties, so that you all contribute and agree this is the way we will go. Internal settlement, can I skip this one? But it is possible to actually have an addressing system irrespective of how informal the settlement is. Let me just leave it at that. It is possible. You need not get worried. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mr. Nana.
I think I'll go through the questions as raised by the various groups. It's because they were not pointed towards specific. It was broadcast. So I'll begin with question number one, which was rollout of the postcodes. That was group one. Yeah, as it is, postcodes actually at the moment, as you will know, identifies the post office. It really is complementary to the name. It was meant to distinguish between locations that have got almost similar names. Just for instance, Bura in Taita Taveta and Buratana. Sometimes we confuse Iten for Litein and so on and so forth. So the only way we could distinguish that for sorting purposes and routing of our mail is the postcode. Now with NAS, I hope I said it right. With NAS, you actually are going to have new postcodes. Within the development of NAS, there will be postcodes. And as it stands right now, we are in PCK, and we work with the CA, our regulator, because they're the custodians of numbering and the address, but we also are the users. And as I stand here, I also represent the other members of the Courier Industry Association within the context of infrastructure for our purposes. So the existing, can I call it the electoral boundaries, are being considered for adoption as representative of the new postcodes, where instead of having the 001, which is really not Nairobi, it is GPO Nairobi. Any other prefix of 0 means the region that we call Nairobi. And the post offices and the parent offices is a bit of a complicated thing you don't have to go into. But within the context of the new postcodes, the delimitation by the IEBC indicates where the county is, the constituency number, the ward, ward, and beyond that, we are going to consider, depending on the geographical expanse of the ward, we could subdivide it, and each of them will have a code. So that when you are looking for a specific location, if it is in a given area with a postcode, you do not waste time looking for, just like you have to now wonder, where is 005? You are specific. So yes, the postcodes will therefore change, and expect that to happen. That's the role of PCK and the CA within NAS development. The second question from that group was linked between land and addressing and evolution. Members of the steering committee are from various institutions. We have got survey, we've got land, and all the agencies of government. I will share the data and information they have relating to all these areas, so that we build into the NAS those details. Critical to note, the most important player is the county government, the custodians of all these assets, the ones who own the land. They know who needs to pay land rates, and so the information they have will be shared with NAS. And within that, therefore, we have the standards regarding the formatting of the information for purpose of access and use. And there will be regulations and if costs. Then if you want information as provided for in the Constitution, you would have to either meet the cost or receive it as a user that is going to benefit the government. I think that is the next phase, where we're engaging the stakeholders to buy into the various principles and documents guiding the NAS in the country. Non-permanent residence is also talked about it, but to add a little bit onto that, when you have a building such as Sarit Center, there are so many people who occupy offices here at different levels, but it's already an address with a street, with a name and a number. So how do I get you? That is where we come in with what we are calling the primary address, the area where we're involved. And to that extent, we're using what we call the Universal Postal Union Addressing Standard, which is called S42, with various formattings that then gives specific routing towards where you are or that location. So, for instance, we would say Sarit Center, second floor, door this, or suite that. And that becomes an address. Now, when you go there, you adopt it. You adopt it, and when you move, you leave it for the next person to come, but you must tell where you're going so that you are known. The others have also been answered by the CA, but I beg just for a minute, because this is a business issue that Group 4 asked. Technology has overtaken posta. That is a perception. It is true. Technology is inevitable. It's a disruptor. But we're also playing in the league. So it may not have been very apparent, but PCK is actively involved in ensuring that we play in that league. We are investing in technology, and we are shifting from what you used to call analog to the digital platforms. We are involved in many areas, and I think maybe we can engage a little bit more for anyone who wants to add a little bit more. I'm available after this, and thank you very much, and I wish Kara the very best, all the members, associations, and individual members, and we thank you.
Just focus on some that may be of concern to some of us here as Kara. On the issue of the land registry and the addressing system, the one thing I need us to understand as residents is that those two are very different. Your LR number will not be affected by the address, nor are they the same thing. There are some estates where the number you have outside your gate is the same as what's on your LR number, right? Your parcel from the bigger parcel of land that your estate is in. That will change, but it doesn't mean that anything has changed on your title. It's important to note that. Those are very two different systems, but they will be talking to each other. John, you asked something about how you deal with people who will be moving around. The concept of the national addressing system will have something called the proof of address. That's something we're toying around with, in the sense that the same way every year by 30th of June, we have to file returns with the Kenya Revenue Authority. In the same sense, a framework similar to that, where you have to every year say where you live, and it has to be proven that you live there. Now, who will prove that you live there is a big debate, whether it's going to be the resident associations, the OCS, and so on. But that needs to be done so that we know that in those houses, in those offices, we have the same people there all the time, and we can confirm. It's happening in countries like Singapore, where you're required to say where you are, whether you are outside Singapore or in Singapore, you have to fill it in. Otherwise, you become pretty much a delinquent as far as the government is concerned. And it's a cultural thing because, you know, for Singapore, there's a certain high level of discipline and order, and I believe we can get there even as Kenyans. For Mercy, because I realize nobody has answered your question on civic education, I think that is something that is being taken very seriously. As we go around the country, as the committee goes around the country, that's one of the big things we're going to be bringing in to people, and perhaps it's also going to be something that will be incorporated into the school curriculum by the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, so that people grow up knowing what a national addressing system is and why it is important for you and how it affects your life, how it makes your life better. But you are right, the issues about security, issues about privacy, who can access that information. But with technology, you can actually be able to decide who can have access to what, right? So the Ministry of Interior will have access to everything. You know, they need to know everything. But the person who needs to know the address for people around Langata because they want to sell something doesn't need to know everything about you. They just need to know the different addresses, maybe the demographics, so that you can be able to trade better. For the informal settlements and people involved in informal business, the beauty of an address and that database is that you'll be able to market to a specific area in a specific way, depending on the demographics and what your product is there for. So it will also enhance trade and investment in a particular way. I think that's in terms of the response to the questions. My final remark is that if you do have any questions, any concerns, issues that you'd like to have presented to the committee as we deliberate, please do reach out to us at Kara, and I'll take the responsibility to present it to them. I hope that's not the bell. Okay, thank you.
Very thank you.